want to talk about why loot boxes are bad, and I want to go into further depth because a lot of people seem to still not understand exactly why loot boxes are bad and what's wrong with them. Now, I have talked plenty of times before about the BF Skinner reason, so I won't get into that test. And while you're watching this, I want you to try and listen to the sounds, look at everything, and process it well before I get into some of the points. But and why I want to explain this is because I go by a belief when I did my retail course, which is if you can't explain something simply, then you simply don't know enough about said something. And I know this isn't a simple explanation because I won't say it's going to be a long video, but it will be a video, a whole video on it. So I want to talk about something that I learned in retail as well, even though I know it's more of a general thing that applies to business and gaming may be a bit different. So people, because like a lot of game devs have been watching my YouTube videos now, and they may not insinuate it being relevant to them, but you know, I still think it is because business is business, period. It's not just all about scripting when you're making games. So something that they taught me was to try and get people to make compulsive purchases, which is to make someone buy something out of an emotional want rather than a logical need. And while that is good to make a quick term profit, they also said that, you know, that's good short term business, right? But it's not good long term business. In fact, it's so important to establish long term business practices rather than short term that they even advised me that sometimes it's best that if someone's looking at a product and they're asking, you know, what can I do with this? What's the best one to buy? I don't really have this much money. It may even be best to actually recommend they go buy from your competitor, even because if you're willing to do so, then you're helping the customer enough that it builds a relationship between you and the customer. And because of this relationship, this loyalty it establishes, they'll keep coming back and wanting to support your store, right? It's kind of like that concept where if you're from the same country, you want to support them more, like, you know, because of heritage and so forth, because you're related to them. You want to support them purely because of that. So that's why people, for instance, in Australia like to shop at Foodland because it's all Australian owned and operated, even if it may be more expensive than Woolworths, which are two shopping places that I guess would only apply to Australians. But and the other thing is, so this isn't just bad for consumers, is something that I wanted to point out here in this point. And the other thing is it represents everything that you do as a game dev or anyone in any sort of business or company. You represent that company for as long as you are employed. It doesn't matter if you're on job, off job, whether you're wearing a suit with a name tag and everything, or whether you're just in your own casual clothes, you're still representing that company. Everything you say and do represents and reflects that company. And what that company says and does, what they show themselves to stand for and support, because if they don't disassociate themselves with your actions, then they are representing and or I should say supporting what you do there, then then it makes the whole company look bad. And when the company looks bad, then their products also are reflective of that. So people don't want to support, for instance, like what is it? Chinese labor, you know, how they get like kids to manufacture shit. Because people know about that, they may not want to support products from China because of ethical reasons such as that. And the same can be applied to loot boxes, obviously. So now that I've covered why it's bad for business wise, I'll get into the more basic and obvious, which we've probably all heard of by now, but I want to say it anyway. So as you know, getting into the science part of it, our brains have glands, right? That when something interesting or good happens, something mentally or visually stimulating, something that has a lot of fast-paced action that quote gets your adrenaline rush or your blood pumping, is something that triggers your glands to open up and secrete out a certain chemical, and this chemical is called dopamine. It floods your brain, and that blood makes you feel good, right, for doing something which would generally be stupid, like doing burnouts with your car. Even though it burns out your tires, it still makes you feel good, you know, and that's because of the dopamine. And so, talking about visual stimulation, as you can see, when I open this loot box, you'll see one, a zoom in, right? Just sun zoom in, slow down while the sound builds up, then it opens up, and you see all of the things pop into the sky. You get a chance to look at the colors: white for common, green for rare, blue for what is it? No, green for uncommon, blue for rare, purple for um legendary, and gold for like epic or something like that. Like we all know the gradient, so when we see it, we know this is more, this is better than that. Like while it's just in there for that short period in the sky, so that the build up from the zoom in and the camera shake to before when it zooms out, it goes up with the sound effect and everything, just builds onto that moment where when you pull the lever in the BF Skinner test, which I've explained more than once now on my channel, that is the moment where the dopamine releases, where you feel really good for having opened a loot box. Precisely when it opens, it's not even when it drops down and you see the loot, because generally at that moment you see that you've just done a ton of replica skins that you've already got, and you're just like, oh, I don't even want that. Sometimes it's not even stuff that you get to keep. Sometimes the virtual goods are just like one-time use sprays or some shit. I think it's like 20 or something in CS:GO or some shit. I can't even remember. All I remember is the previous CS:GOs had it. Counter Strikes had it for free, and you just imported your own and used it infinitely. Because you know that's how sprays are supposed to work. But yeah, the rarity and the manipulation that I've gone into before, where you can also layer on the manipulation with this, where you create red herrings, where it's like, oh, you can earn these loot boxes in game, or oh, you don't have to use it. It's and that sort of shit, where it's like, you know, it could be worse. It's like, yeah, no, this is still a problem, even if there could be a worse version of it incorporated, which there definitely has been in time. There's all different games have different loot boxes which are worse for different reasons, but either way, it makes the game look worse. It's worse for the consumers. It's worse for business. These are addictive in nature, and I feel that even though everything can be addictive, it's different when things are addictive in nature, when they're designed to be addictive. And as I explained in the previous points, how that is loot boxes are just simply bad for both business and the consumer. And I hope that people you know think about this and have some time to really reflect the concept, because I guess a lot of people talk about how it's bad for the consumer, but you know, more devs looking at it and so forth. I hope they get the message too that loot boxes are just a bad idea all around.